Hello, this is IP Stories by 4IP Council, a podcast about innovation and intellectual property. Join us and you'll hear about the journeys through invention, creation, and IP understanding of our guests.
I'm Marta.
And I'm Fernanda, and today we're happy to welcome to our podcast Andreas Sørensen. Andreas, as an entrepreneur coming from a completely different background, would you please tell us about your entrepreneurship journey?
Sure. First of all, great pronunciation of my name. It's a tricky one, I know. Coming from Denmark, small country, 5 million people. So well done there.
Thank
Yeah, so I come from, I actually have a background in finance. Grew up in a small town north of the capital of Denmark, Copenhagen. And I started studying finance at the Danish Business School or Copenhagen Business School. But then working with in a ministry in Denmark and later in a bank, I always had this, I would say, like dream or urge or energy towards entrepreneurship. And even though I didn't really have any good ideas, I had a energy inside telling me that if something would pop up, like a good idea would pop up, I would pursue it or be ready to pursue it. Seeing both my granddad, my own dad, and now also my mom being entrepreneurs, it's really something in the family. So you know, I never seen it as something mysterious or something I would be afraid of. Uh, I think sometimes my family would be thinking, oh, okay, another entrepreneur in the family, is this really a good idea? What about the solid job in the bank? But yeah, here I am, and I'm really happy to have taken this step into the world of entrepreneurship.
How did you and your partner came up with the idea for Birdie?
So actually, it comes from a study program my partner went to, where he had to visualize a invisible problem. And since air quality is invisible, um, it was a funny task to find something to visualize an invisible problem. And it started with something completely different, a very bad idea to be honest, but it was the beginning of our how we entered or made an entrance into the whole air quality, the world of air quality, and we quickly found that it's a massive issue and a huge problem globally. Um, of course, it's differentiated a bit from in which area of the world you're from, but the baseline is that it's the awareness towards air quality is growing, especially fueled after COVID. We could see that people got more aware of, okay, there is actually something I'm breathing that could be harmful to me. Airborne disease, that's pretty obvious, but there could also be some long-term issues with bad air quality. So we we were thinking back and forth on how to tackle it and how to make this invisible problem visible. And then we came up with the idea of the canary in the coal mine. And as some of you might know, back in the days in the coal mines, miners, they would bring small cute canaries into the mine, but it was actually a very important tool for them because if the canaries would faint, the miners would know that the next one to faint would be themselves. So it was an alarm for them to know that they had some kind of gas or some kind of toxic air coming from somewhere in the mine, and they could run out in time and save themselves. So you can also see that in the English language, you can say a canary in a coal mine. That's someone who warns a group of people saying like, oh, there is something here we have to be aware of. So we use that idea to make uh, air quality monitor in the shape of a canary bird, a yellow bird, and then when our product, it looks like it dies or the bird faints, then you open your windows, you let the fresh air in from outside, restore the air quality in your home, and then the bird would automatically restore itself.
Perfect. I love that story, by the way. I love the story about the design. So I'm excited for everyone to know about it.
I would like to know a little bit more about your parents' businesses. You mentioned that they are entrepreneurs, so I would like to know how or if they influenced you.
I think they did. In general, in my family, there are two types of people. There are creative people, and there are um, what can you say, more logical people. I would say, I said it not in a bad way, but we have creative people and we have engineers and So my granddad, he ran a quite a big engineer company in Denmark who expanded globally. Um, and then my dad, he was not really an engineer. He had the creative brain, so he became a designer and has run a design studio outside Copenhagen for the past, yeah, 30 some years. So I've been growing up in that design studio, seeing how drawings became prototypes that became products on the shelves, eventually ending up in people's homes. So I think seeing that has been really, influencing me in a way that I haven't been too afraid of going into products or like physical products because I've seen it so many times coming from drawings either by hand or by computer, and then eventually a year later see it on a shelf in a design store. Um, Additionally, he also helped us in the beginning to shape the product in the right way, and also giving us contacts, opening up some doors in his own network. Because I think that was the most difficult part in the beginning was, okay, we do have an idea, but how do we take the idea from a drawing on an envelope to a professional 3D drawing, eventually to a professional prototype, and then of course a mass production and scalable production. So we got some help there in the beginning, and we also investigate a lot ourselves to find it. So I think, yeah. So to come back to the question, I think it basically just gave me the, that I was not too nervous or not too afraid in a way to jump out as an entrepreneur or working with physical products, since I've been seeing it growing up that, it's possible if you do it right.
That's so great to see that you can go from having an idea to having a business. And also the fact that he could help you,
Mm.
because when you are starting, any help you can get is so welcome.
Indeed, and if I may add, we still do, but also especially in the beginning, we obviously faced a lot of different, um, you know, hurdles, problems, things that had to be solved. And since again, I have a finance background, my partner he has a advertisement background. There was still a lot of areas that we couldn't cover by our, competences. So every time we reach an issue or problem or something we had to solve, we tried to consult at least three different people that were experts within the field that we had to work with, to explain the problem to them, and then see if they suggest the same solution. And if all three people suggested the same solution, it also convinced us that, okay, it's probably the right way to go. So that was a way of working in the beginning. Something we still try to do, but now we have a little less time. But I think it was a great thing to just consult a lot of people in the beginning.
Yes, definitely. I love that idea of consulting three people and then see if they come up with the same solution. That's a great tip.
So you mentioned that you have a background in finance, and I was wondering, how does it feel to leave a steady job in the bank to become an
Yeah.
entrepreneur?
Physically, it feels nice to leave the white shirt and the tight trousers, and now I have a bit my clothes a bit more loosened up.
Uh,
But with that aside, I think the biggest change has been that before I worked with a very specific area,
mhm.
in a way specialized area, and now I work with almost all areas. So that also means I work with areas that I'm not very good at, and that's a thing that you have to get used to. That sometimes you have to solve problems when you're an entrepreneur that you don't really feel confident about the area. You're not really good at it neither. But when you turn around, you see there's no one to help you, so you have to do it yourself. Where in the bank, I work with some very specific financial models and risk models, and if I needed help, I could always reach out to some extremely smart people. And now I'm just so I think that's a big change, right? But apart from that, I think I had a great I really had a great boss working in the bank, and he gave me he gave me a great send off. To be honest, I was very afraid of quitting because I felt so bad about leaving my job, because I actually had a really good boss and it was a good job. But I just wanted to pursue this idea, and I was feeling I would be sad if I was gonna look back later on and say, oh, I didn't grab the chance. So eventually I asked my boss for a meeting, and we talked about it, and he was very supportive and said like he would be sad if he was blocking me from being an entrepreneur. So I was like, okay, wow, that's a new perspective.
That's
And he
nice.
gave me like what he called a entrepreneur survival kit, and that was basically canned tomatoes, canned tuna, pasta, just like to survive on my new low wage. So leaving the bank was in that way okay. And I mean, now I look back, I was very happy I was in the bank, but I'm also very happy that I'm now working with Birdie. Even though I think the skill set, competence I developed in the bank might not be useful yet in Birdie, since the finance in Birdie is still quite simple. We have one product, we sell it, then we see what we earn. Right, in the bank it was a little bit more sophisticated, but it also has its charm that it's simple and straightforward right now.
And talking about finance, I would like to know, how did you finance your project once you had the prototype? What was the next step then?
So we decided when we got the first prototype that was professionally made, that we could see, okay, this is actually pretty cool. It's actually working, which was also kind of a surprise. We're like, okay, wow, we actually made something here. And we decided in that early stage to crowdfund the product, or the company, and basically due to two things. And the first one, which was, the main purpose, was to finance the production setup. Anyone who works with hardware, anyone who works with physical products, know that the investments in the beginning are quite high, because you need a production setup before you can sell it. So you need to invest a lot in the beginning. But secondly, I think what would later become the most important learning from the crowdfunding was to actually get a realistic feeling of the demand, because we would actually charge people real money for like pre-order the product. So looking back, I think what would later become the most important lesson was definitely the demand. But in the beginning, we were only focusing on, okay, we need to finance the production. We need some tooling to actually produce real units, and we need some, we need the last development to be finished, and we need to buy components, CO2 sensors, and the small motor that turns the bird, and everything we have to invest before we could sell it. So we started. We were still working there. I was still working in the bank, and my partner was still working in the advertisement industry. So every weekend we would meet up, and we would try to outline, okay, how do we tackle this? Then we found a great mentor who has been very successful himself in crowdfunding, and he liked our idea. He liked the approach, so he would become our mentor. He would overview our crowdfunding process. He would open doors for us for important partners, and then we used, in a way, his experience to leverage ourselves. And then we found some chose some partners. We invested a lot of time in making a video, tried to explain the product. Since we didn't have any money, we told the people helping us that they will get a small percentage of the funding that we would get, which was of course a risk they took, but as I will explain later, it was a good risk they took because it went well. So when we had the video ready, we decided to launch the product, and we set a goal of around $8,000, hoping that would be just enough to get the production rolling and get a small loan in the bank. But already after the first 2 hours after launching the campaign, we had raised more than $30,000, and we were, nipping our arm, thinking like, okay, like what is going on here? It was super scary, especially because we took the crazy decision to invite 100 of our closest family and friends to a big event, and then put it on a full, like on a project on a screen, so everybody could follow it live. So it would be really like, if it failed, it would be like a fail where we had the witness of everyone we knew. On the other hand, I mean, if you go big or go home, right? So we were like, okay, if we gotta do it, we gotta do it like for real. And then, we never told our friends and family, but there was a thing that we were thinking about when we were just the two of us, that if they come to our party, maybe they feel a little bad if they don't support our Kickstarter, our crowdfunding. So maybe we'll get some support for 100 people in the start here. And it turned out that we did. So we got 100 ambassadors that would go tell their friends and family about it. And it was also a part of, going well. So 30 days later, the campaign ended, and we have raised what would be more than $500,000, sold 5,000 units to 70 countries. And it was really a kickstart. Like the name was living up to itself. So, and we were like, okay, we cannot return to the banking and the advertising world. We will have to be full-time, bird keepers, and bird employees. So and we've been that ever since.
What do you think was the key to have such a successful crowdfunding? Because what attracted us to your product is that it's very useful, very simple, easy to understand. Do you think this is what attracted all the additional funding?
I think so. I think when doing a crowdfunding, or I guess launching any product, it's about how you do it. The execution is half of it, and then the product itself is half of it. So of course the product has to be good in the end. Otherwise you will be called out. But it's also so important how you launch it and execute it, and if you can build some kind of community or some kind of hype around it, it really helps a lot. So I think again, what we did well in the crowdfunding, but what I also have when I talk to other people who have successful crowdfunding campaigns, they all say the same, and it's about what they call pre-campaign. So everything you do before the actual launch, that's where you really, that's where you're seeding your whole adventure in a way, and then you can harvest when you launch it. But if you don't do a good pre-campaign, it might never take off, and it might never get this ramp up in the beginning that you really need. And it the platform Kickstarter works like a social media. So if you can go viral, you can really you can end up on the front page of Kickstarter. You can in the newsletters. You can you can be talked about in different communities around Kickstarter. And if you want to get that viral effect, you have to do a lot of homework before launching it. But then again, you can do a lot of pre-campaign, and you can do a lot of efforts before. But if you then don't have a product that attract people, or people don't see themselves, then it's kind of lost. So it's I think it's two-sided, right? So you need a product that is well working, but you can also make the best product in the world, but if you don't get it out there, then it doesn't really matter. And then vice versa. You can try to push a product that's not good, but in the end it will fail. So yeah, having those two things, I think that's the magic key. It's simply it's simple to say, but it's difficult to do, right? But in a way, that's I mean that's at least one word for us.
I think it was great as well that you had this mentor to help you know if you're going in the right direction. You just gave great advice to startups, so thank you.
That's good to hear. And I can add there that we use the same mentality as I explained before, that we always try to seek advice to around 3 people. That was the same at Kickstarter. We researched and found the best crowdfunding campaigns in Denmark, and then we're trying to reach out to all of them and say like, hey, we have this idea. Do you want to see it? Do you want to help us? Can we ask you questions? And a lot of people were super nice and reached back to us and gave their best advice. Obviously they are super busy themselves, but they did take their time out and try to help us. And then when you hear from 3 to 4 or 5 different successful campaigns that they all did the same, then you're like, okay, there's probably something about that.
How important are intellectual property rights for your company, Birdie?
It's super important, and something that we also, yeah, we had quite an adventurous ride regarding IPR. I think from the beginning we didn't know that much about IP. Of course, again, from my dad, we knew that products would be copied, could be copied. Successful design items, they tend to be copied, and so we were very aware of this risk. And I think we still have the mentality that we're not going to be naive. If Birdie keeps on being successful, there will come copies, unfortunately. So in the beginning, we were focusing a lot on the name, on the design, but that's where we wasted some money there in the beginning, because I thought, okay, we're just gonna protect the brand in Denmark, and then I found out later that you can just protect it through the EU, and it's actually cheaper than do it through Denmark, and then you can get Denmark as well. So that's where we wasted the first money. Then we design protected it, like design patent protected it in the EU. And then just before we launched the product, we got contacted by a Danish IP firm asking about this idea we had and how we protected it. And I explained to them how we did. And they invited us for a meeting at their office. And they outlined our different opportunities regarding also patents and also global trademark and global design protection. And it was crucial because we got the meeting before we launched the product, and it turned out that we had even more things to protect that we didn't even know about, and that was especially the patent. And then we got everything sorted regarding patent just before we launched the product. And had we launched the product, and then it would be too late, because then we have already been public about our technology. So I mean,
Because I guess it would have been easy to do reverse engineering or something like that, right?
exactly. And I think I'm still very grateful for those lawyers who reached out. Of course, now I've been working with lawyers for 2 years. They can be quite expensive, but I mean, it would have been way, 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 way more expensive than if we haven't had the protection. And being a company that likes marketing, we also saw it as a great marketing thing to have like patent pending, copy, trademark, name, design patent, all these kind of stamps. It's also a quality mark, and also a way to scare away any copyists out there. So in general, we are just grateful that they reached out to us, and we made a strategy with the product and the name. And unfortunately, when we chose the first name for the company, which was Canary, we didn't really have a legal process around the how to choose the name. We solely had a creative process, and it turned out when we launched the product, we received a letter from the US saying that if we didn't change our name, they would come after us in the US way. And nobody wants to be sued in the US way. So we of course panicked, called our lawyer, and this name was chosen before they came in the picture. So unfortunately, after some assessment back and forth, we decided that we could try to drag it out. We could try to maybe battle it out, but let's say 3 years down the road, we would lose the case. Then we had to change the name, and the company might be even bigger, and it might be way more complex. So we decided that okay, in the stage we are now, it might be easier just to change the name. So a year after the Kickstarter, we changed the name from Canary to Birdie, and this time choosing Birdie, we actually had a legal process we paid for to make sure that we wouldn't end up in a new name change scenario.
Yeah, I think it's very important to seek legal advice right in the beginning. And thank you for saying that you are grateful for your lawyers. We don't hear that very often, so thank you for that.
No, but we were I think they were very proactive reaching out to us, and of course they have a business to run, so they also reach out to see if there is a customer. But for us, that's fair enough. But they held us outlining a strategy that was not only 6 months ahead, but it was actually we have now, I think now our strategy is 10 years or something, IP strategy. So it's a huge thing they made for us, and we know when the next step is in the line, how we get the global patent pending, how we can extract patents from that, and how we can if we want a specific patent in a specific country, and all these kind of things that we had no idea about before, have it now sorted out, and then we pay for it, but in the end it would have been way more expensive if we had copiers running around our legs.
Absolutely.
Yes, I think you did well. And I would like to know, when you went from Canary to Birdie, well, okay, I already know this, but I would like our audience to know. You did a very cool campaign. Would you tell us about it?
Yeah, I mean, as a crowdfunded company, we thought it would be a nice thing to crowdsource the new name. Partly because we were so much in doubt about what to choose. We were honestly a little bit in panic. The deadline was approaching, 1st of May, and we haven't chosen a name yet. So we came up with the idea of crowdsourcing the new name. So we thought it would be funny to make a competition, ask our followers and people around us who could come up with our new company name, a new product name, and we would award the winner with a trip to the Canary Islands, and of course some birdies. And that competition got very popular, and we got a lot of names, anything from Tweety McTweetface to Joe Burden, and a lot of weird names, to some very serious names, for instance Birdie was very popular. But any people were playing around with air, with Birdie, with stuff like this, and in the end we were actually sitting between a bit of a funny name, like something like Larry, or a real name that could be adopted into the product, and then something a little bit more generic like Birdie, which would also fit in our own name. Our old name Canary would be the same area. But we also learned from that competition that a lot of people have given it personal names at home. So they call it oh yeah, that's my bird Peter, or that's my my bird Larry, or something like that. So we didn't want to take that away from them. So we were like, okay, we have to keep giving it a generic name so we don't take that thing away from them, so they can still decide it on their own. So we got, I think, 5,000 different name suggestions, and we sat down for 2 full days just to like run through them, try to count them, whether some names are more popular than others. And then in the end, Birdie was very popular, and we found out who was the first one who had mentioned it in a comment. We had like a lot of social media, so we ran through all channels, so you see timestamps, and then we found the first person, and it was a student from Copenhagen, and we called her, and I think she didn't even realize that there was a holiday on stake. So she was like so happy, like, whoa, a trip to the Canary Islands is gonna be the best holiday of my life. And she called her boyfriend, and eventually she sent us pictures. And she brought the birdie to the Canary Islands, and she sent us a picture from the beach with the birdie.
I
And
love that.
yeah, it was super cool. Yeah, it was super cool. So I mean, a trip to the Canary Island for 2 people is of course costly, but in the end, what we spent on sending these 2 people to Canary Island, we also got so many creative suggestions for a new name that going to maybe a creative studio would have cost way more than one trip to the Canary Island. So, and it was also a way to activate our community and make it a little bit less sad, and then also a little less surprising when we actually change our name, because then our audience would always be, okay, we knew that already because we helped. Yeah, and then we ended up with I think we had 5 or 10 names that we really liked from the competition. And then that's when we sat down with our lawyer, went through them, say like, okay, this is a nice name, but we might, it might be tricky to get it. So that's why we had the legal process. So in the beginning, we just had a creative process, just asking around, and then people suggested a lot of things. And then we had a legal process where we went through them, one by one, and then eventually erasing them from the list. I think we had 2 names in the final, and then we had to choose from our stomachs which one would we like the most, and it's Birdie now.
My next question is regarding the first year you launched the company, because we have been praising you a lot and saying how well you have done everything. But I would like to know if you would do something different now, looking back, I guess, apart from a different name.
Apart from spending a lot of money on lawyers and new packaging and all like new company name, new trademarks, that was a very costly affair. And like it sounds very nice when you talk about it now, but I would say, and I really want to stress this, that it was a crisis for us because we loved the name, and we were like, oh, we don't have we have to change the packaging of all the units we just produced, and yeah, so it was it ended nice, but it was really not a nice period. Up, and we didn't have a name, so we were also panicking, like, what do we do? So looking back for the last, since we launched, I think it's an IP podcast, so, and since we were hit by a lawsuit, I would say the creative process is super important, but those money you spend on legal advice might be worth way more than you think when you choose a name. And in the end, it doesn't really account. It's not that expensive as it sounds. The expensive part is getting the trademarks, all the fees, and you have to pay them anyways. So, I mean, that would have been a great thing to have assessed back then. Then, of course, we're also a hardware company, we have a hardware production. We are, again, a financial person and an advertising person. So we also had some issues we had to tackle in the product and the production itself. I mean, I think what would have been a great thing to have done differently was spending a little bit more time testing the product, and that can be the one of the cons about the Kickstarter, is that you get the money from the crowd, but then you also have this pressure about delivering it to them. So you get a lot of messages from people like, when do I expect to get it? Can I get it before Christmas? in a way you feel like you owe a lot of people something because they send you their money. And that pressure can also, for us, it meant that we speeded up some processes. And we had now, if I look back, I would say we speeded it up too fast. And if we have taken a step back and not been didn't have to speed it up, we could have avoided some issues in the production that would have saved us a lot of headache and a lot of back and forth with customers. But then on the other hand, I would say that you can also ending up nursing about your product for too long. So it's also a great thing to get your product out and then get the feedback from the customers. And then of course, if you in our company, we just made a policy that if we accidentally send a product that was not working to a customer, we just return it free of charge. We just take it back, try to open it up to see if we can find the issue with the product, and put it in a note and try to see if we can find a pattern, or if it's just single units, because of course you can always make a mistake, right? But it's very difficult to find all these issues when you're just testing yourself. But I think still looking back that it went a little bit too fast, and that's definitely a con from Kickstarter, that you have this pressure of 5,000 people, 70 countries. That we also had countries that was and I'm sorry to say it, Fernanda, but Brazil is really difficult to ship to.
I know.
And
I know. I feel you. Trust me.
Yeah, so there are some. So I also learned later, on the road, that maybe if you do a Kickstarter, you can also narrow it down. So there are certain markets that are just simply too difficult to handle if you're a very small team of 2 people. And then you can always later on, when you grow and you get a professional help and professional logistic partner, then you can do Brazil, for instance, and Chile, and we also had other countries that were just tricky. And we were just happy amateurs, so we just global, we ship everywhere. We're okay, actually we don't, because we can't really do it. So we disappointed some people, and that's always, I hate that. So so that's also something that you can go big in the beginning, but you can also go too big in a way.
How long did it take since you finished the Kickstarter until you sent the first or the last Birdie?
Yeah, we finished this Kickstarter in the 5th of May 2022, and then we start shipping out from December 2022. So it was if I calculate correct, it's something like 6 to 7 months.
That's nothing, really.
I was also pretty satisfied with it, but it was because we were thinking, okay, can we make it before Christmas holidays? But again, looking back, we didn't really make it, but we speeded up the process unnecessarily fast. So, I mean, we should just have been more transparent in our communication to the backer, saying already from maybe July or August, when we started to realize this is going to be tight, just be transparent and say, hey, sorry, we can see now. We just want to test thoroughly. People understand that. So we kind of missed Christmas and started shipping out in January. So it was a little bit.
Well, that's another learning experience. I think anyway that people understand, because when you contribute to a campaign like this, or at least when I have contributed to a Kickstarter, I know that they have no clue how the production is going to go.
Yeah, it's part of the risk by supporting on Kickstarter, that
Exactly.
the production is really a big mystery. You never know how it goes. But I was also satisfied with the delivery in the end. But it was just a lot of back, way more expensive than we thought, and the business case kind of came to zero. So we didn't make any money of it. So we had to take an investment in, and all those kind of things. But then in the end, most importantly, everybody got their product in January, and that was January this year. And then since January this year, we've just been selling regularly from our web shop and from retailers around the world. And yeah, I love that.
What else would you recommend to other startups and SMEs from an IP strategy perspective?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend to get these assessment from in the beginning. And I also experienced from at least our lawyers that the first meeting they will give you an assessment meeting, and it's not going to cost you anything. At least that's how it was for us. So we came in for a meeting for an hour, and we tried to outline a potential strategy, and then we could go home and decide, do we want to spend money on this, or are we not going to spend money on it?
Right.
And then we called another law firm to get a second opinion, and then we had 2 different law firms, and we chose the one who contacted us first. And I think it's been nice to know that there is it also gives you some rest to know that there has been some professional people looking at your IP, and it's not just yourself who has no idea about it. So I think like an early assessment, even though it can be a little bit scary if you want to keep costs down to call a lawyer, I think from our experience at least, it's gonna cost you way more to change your name later on because you didn't spend those early assessment money. We also reached out to some law students just to see if they, could give some advice and some free advices. But in the end, you need professional help. So, I mean, for us, I would just say, don't be afraid of it and just eat it and just do it, because there's really the alternative way is to not have it or do it yourself, and I really don't recommend that.
Yeah, it could be quite complicated, I would say.
Yeah, and you risk that you miss a corner, or you miss a dot, or you miss something, and then your strategy is really, you might risk that it's not really worth anything because you just missed a very important corner. And the legal world is a complicated world, so it's nice to have a captain on the ship to guide you through it.
So unfortunately, we're reaching the end, but I have one more question for you. What plans do you have in the pipeline for Birdie?
At least no more name changes, I hope. But on the product side, we want to expand Birdie into other countries, and we are, of course, we have global shipping right now in our web shop, but I'm talking about more strategic, go-to-market strategy. We're focusing on how to expand into the rest of EU, but also a way to get into the north, especially the US, and that's something we're going to work on. And additionally, we're also working on other products in the field of air quality, maybe other colors, who knows, and then see how that will take us. But it's still very in the early phase. But it's, we have been thinking about launching a new product on Kickstarter, but then I can't say more about it. But follow us and see what happens.
We'll have to keep an eye on it. Andreas, thank you so much for being here with us today. It was a great pleasure to have you and to hear your story. And I can't wait for everyone to hear that as well.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to IP Stories by 4IP Council. Visit our website on 4ipcouncil.eu to find out more and check out the links mentioned during this episode. If you liked it, remember to share and subscribe.